They said it hovered in silence, just above the trees. It made no sound, left no shadow, but every child on the playground saw it. They said it landed, that something stepped out, something not human, tall, grey, with eyes that never blinked. It did not speak, not with words, but every child heard the same message, a warning about the earth, about what we are doing to it, and what might happen if we do not stop. This is the story of a school where 60 children saw something the world still cannot explain, a case so credible, so disturbing, that even a Harvard psychiatrist flew across the world to hear it, firsthand. Some say it was a mass hallucination. Others believe it was the closest we have ever come to open contact. Whatever it was, it changed those children forever. This is the school that witnessed a UFO, and the story has only grown stranger with time. On the morning of September 16, 1994, at a small private school in the town of Rua, Zimbabwe, recess began like any other day. The children poured out of their classrooms, excited to run, play, and stretch in the open air. There were no clouds, no wind, no strange sounds. Just the usual chatter of young voices and the crunch of gravel beneath running shoes. The school grounds were bordered by a line of brush and eucalyptus trees, and beyond those trees, open scrubland that led far out into the African wilderness. It was a typical morning, until it wasn't. It started with one group of students near the edge of the playground. They looked up, saw something shimmering, metallic, moving across the sky without a sound. They pointed, called out, "Ooh!" Others gathered, more heads turned upward. Soon nearly 60 children were staring at an object that hovered, dipped, and moved in ways no known aircraft could. It was silver disc-shaped, reflective, and it descended slowly toward the trees, not in a straight line, not with the wobble of a balloon, but with control, with purpose. Some said it landed just beyond the trees, in the brush. Others said it stayed suspended just above the ground. And then they saw the figures, two beings, or possibly more, emerged from the area near the craft. They were described as tall, thin, with skin that looked grey or pale, and most of all, their eyes large, black, oval, watching. Some children said one of the beings walked directly toward them. Others described a feeling, not of fear, but of being examined, as if their thoughts were not entirely private. The figure stopped at the tree line, then turned and disappeared into the brush. One girl said she could feel a message entering her mind, not in words, not in any language, but clear like a picture or an emotion made solid. She said the being was warning her about the future, about the environment, about how technology was dangerous if we did not respect the planet. The children said they received the same feeling, the same message, without ever hearing a sound. There was no noise, no engine, no roar, only a low hum felt in the chest, not heard in the ear. Some said time felt slower, as if the whole moment stretched, and the rest of the world had paused around them. Not all the children saw the same exact thing, but their drawings, taken minutes after the event, tell a unified story, a hovering craft, a strange figure, and eyes, always the eyes, within 15 minutes. It was over. The object was gone, the beings vanished, and the children ran, some screaming, some crying, some silent, back into the school building. That day, there were no teachers outside. All of the adults had been in a faculty meeting during recess. None of them saw the event directly, but when they saw the children, they knew something had happened. They were terrified, many too shaken to speak. Others trying to explain what they had seen, with drawings, with trembling hands, with eyes wide and fixed on the tree line outside. The teachers at Ariel School had no idea how to handle what they were hearing. They listened as child after child told them the same thing. There was a craft. There were figures and a message. Some students were calm, others were visibly distressed. Several refused to go back outside. Even the next day, the headmaster, Colin Mackey, gathered the children together and asked them to draw what they had seen. He handed them blank paper and pencils, and one by one, the drawings began to fill with shapes that looked like flying saucers, figures with large heads and dark eyes. What stood out was the consistency. Without speaking to each other, without comparing notes, the students produced images that mirrored one another, the craft, the beings, the expressions of fear and awe. Word of the incident spread quickly, first among local families, then through reporters. A local radio host covered the story, and soon a BBC crew arrived from Harare. They filmed interviews with the children, who recounted their stories, some in soft voices, others still overwhelmed. A girl named Emily said the being had looked right at her, into her, she said. It knew what she was thinking, and somehow she knew what it was thinking too. Another boy said he felt frozen, like he wanted to run, but couldn't. His legs wouldn't move. One girl said she had never been that scared before, not because it threatened her, but because she had never seen eyes like that. So black, so deep, so still. The story caught the attention of Dr. John Mack, a Harvard psychiatrist who had begun studying abduction phenomena. He had already interviewed hundreds of adults who claimed alien contact. But this case was different. These were children with no media training, no financial motive, no history of lying, and most of all, no way to have coordinated such a detailed account. Mack flew to Zimbabwe and spent days at the school, interviewing the children, recording their stories separately in small groups, and privately. He found them sincere and disturbed, but not mentally unstable, not delusional, not suggestible in the ways critics often claimed. The children spoke about the eyes again and again, how the beings did not blink, how they just stood there, as if waiting. They talked about a kind of energy, a static in the air, a sense that something enormous was happening, but no one else knew it. Mack documented everything, video, audio, transcripts, and his own personal notes. He said afterward that this was one of the most significant cases he had ever studied, not just because of what the children saw, but because of how consistent they were, how calm they were in their retelling, and how affected they remained, even weeks later, even years after the encounter. The students remained firm. Many of them were interviewed again as adults, and their stories had not changed. They remembered the shape of the craft, the exact location, the sensation of being watched, and the message, a warning about the future, about how humans were harming the earth. These were not people trying to get on television. Many had never spoken publicly again, but when they were asked, they said yes, they still remembered. They always would. As the days passed, the aerial school incident became more than a local mystery. International media picked it up. Articles appeared in British and American outlets. Segments aired on TV and suddenly, the small school in Ruwa found itself at the center of global curiosity. But the attention came with skepticism. Commentators questioned the reliability of children. Some accused the school of encouraging a hoax. Others said the children had simply misidentified a helicopter or had seen a balloon and turned it into a story. But the more people looked, the less the simple explanations made sense. There were no helicopters in the area that day, no weather balloons, and the children's stories remained consistent, even when separated, even when questioned by strangers. Even when asked again, years later, John Mack returned to Harvard with his findings and faced criticism from colleagues who believed he was venturing into pseudoscience. But he refused to recant. He believed something real had happened at Ariel School, something psychological or possibly even physical that had left a mark on those children. He spoke at conferences, wrote about the case, and included it in his research on encounters and altered states of consciousness. He did not say the beings were from another plane. He simply said that what the children described was consistent, emotionally powerful, and deeply important. They believed their experience deserved to be treated with respect, not ridicule. Years passed. The media lost interest. The world moved on, but the case never fully went away, for researchers continued to cite it as one of the strongest cases on record, not because of hard physical evidence, but because of the witnesses, their age, their sincerity, and their lifelong memory of what happened. In later interviews, some of the children, now grown, appeared in documentaries, soft-spoken, hesitant, but unwavering. They said they still saw it when they closed their eyes. The shape, the shimmer, the figure near the trees. One former student, now in her 30s, said she still felt the message lingering in her thoughts, a warning that had never faded. The school itself carried on. New students arrived, old ones graduated. The field where the sighting occurred remained untouched, still open, still quiet. The staff eventually stopped talking about the event, officially. There was never a formal investigation by the government, no official statement, no denial, just silence. But among those who were there, silence spoke volumes. They remembered how the air felt heavy, how the light bent strangely near the tree, how their breath caught in their throats, not from fear, but from something they could not describe. As time went on, the drawings faded, the tapes were archived, but the memory among those who had seen it remained alive, and the questions only grew larger. Why would something appear to children? Why no adults? Why that place, that day, and that message? Why speak about the planet? Why warn of technology? Why leave no trace? There is no shortage of theories about what happened at Ariel School. Some explanations are grounded in psychology, others in skepticism. Some stretch far beyond science into the unexplained. The most common claim is mass hysteria, a form of shared delusion triggered by fear or suggestion. But psychologists who studied the case noted that mass hysteria typically spreads in groups under emotional stress, and often among adults. The children at Ariel were not under stress. They were at recess, happy, relaxed, until the object appeared, and their stories, though similar, contained unique details, emotions, perspectives. The kind of variance that suggests real experience, not a copied fantasy. Another theory is misidentification. Some skeptics believe the children may have seen a weather balloon, a plane, or a local helicopter, and their imaginations filled in the rest. But no aircraft were logged in the area, no military flights, no science experiments, no confirmed vehicles in that airspace. And again, the children described movements that do not match balloons or planes. They described a descent, hovering precision, and no sound. Many of the children had never even seen a commercial plane up close. They lived in a rural area, cut off from Western pop culture. Alien stories and science fiction tropes, a more fringe theory, shared by some ufologists, suggests that the event was a tester moment of contact designed for children, specifically because children are more openless, conditionedless, likely to rationalize away the impossible. Some believe the message about the environment was intentional, that the beings, whatever they were, chose to warn humanity through minds that were still flexible, still unshaped by politics, profit or disbelief. Others think the children experienced a form of telepathic projection, a consciousness event where they received information not from beings outside the craft, but from something else entirely. A field and intelligence, not physical, but present. Some researchers compared the incident to other mass sightings, such as the Westall School event in Australia in 1966, where over 200 students and teachers saw a craft descend and ascend in daylight, with no explanation and no official response. The parallels are haunting: school settings, daylight sightings, multiple witnesses, no adult intervention, and cases that never receive resolution. Others believe the aerial incident was unique, a one-time moment, never repeated and never forgotten. And then there are those who think the children were targeted, that whatever the phenomenon was, it was drawn to young minds as if to imprint something or test a reaction or deliver a message, one they would carry with them their whole lives. A handful of the witnesses reported recurring dreams, strange lights, a feeling that the moment had not truly ended, that it had only begun. John Mack believed the incident challenged our definitions of reality. He said that consciousness itself might be more complex than we understand, and that encounters like this, whether physical or psychological, demand to be studied, not dismissed. Decades have passed since that clear morning in Zimbabwe. But for those who were there, the memory is not distant, not vague, not dreamlike. It is sharp, immediate, and permanent. Some of the children have grown into parents, teachers, scientists, and artists, scattered across continents. But when they are asked, they return to that moment without hesitation. They remember the shape of the craft, the feeling of the air, the stillness in the trees, and most of all, the eyes, the black, motionless, unblinking eyes. Many have spoken on record in documentaries, in private interviews, or through written accounts. Some have stayed quiet, not because they forgot, but because they knew what others would think. Even now, the stigma remains. Yet none of them have recanted, none have changed their story, none have claimed it was a prank of fantasy or a dream. One woman said, "I can forget many things from my childhood, but not that, never that. I see it even now. When I close my eyes," another witness said, "it shaped how I see the world, how I think about life and death, and what might be out there." Filmmakers and researchers have tried to revive the story in recent years, but the case remains strangely absent from mainstream discussion, perhaps because it cannot be solved, and because it does not fit into easy categories. There were no abductions, no missing time, no radar confirmation, just 60 children, a craft, a moment, and a message. The simplicity, combined with the credibility, makes it harder to explain and harder to dismiss. The aerial school still stands. Students still run across that field. Teachers still look out over the same trees, and no official plaque marks the event, no sign or memorial. Just a story, passed between generations, told in whispers by those who know. For UFO researchers, the aerial case remains a holy grail, a moment when the phenomenon broke into daylight in front of dozens of untrained, unbiased, and unforgettable witnesses. And for those witnesses, it remains personal, not an event, but a moment of awakening, of contact, of transformation. Some believe they were chosen, others feel it was random, but all of them carry. It's still the question now is not whether they saw something, but why so few have listened. Maybe the message was never meant for the adults. Maybe it was always meant to begin with the children. What happened that day at Aerial School remains unexplained, not because the evidence is lacking, but because the evidence refuses to fit into any known box. There was no technology to analyze, no radar blip to follow. No crash site to study, just children, just stories, just memory. But sometimes the most important data lies in the ones who carry it. The witnesses did not ask to see what they saw. They did not seek attention. They did not try to profit. They simply reported, again and again, what they remember, and what they remember has never changed. So what do you believe? Can 60 children all imagine the same thing, draw the same shape, describe the same eyes and feel the same fear? Or was someone really there? The forest remains, the field remains, the silence remains, but the truth, whatever it is, still waits to be heard. New mysteries are revealed every week. This is the Midnight Channel, where the strange never sleeps.